Jillian, you know what?
What?
We need to take a picture to commemorate the season finale of Please Explain.
Oh, we absolutely should.
Yes, and I want everybody in it, so I'm gonna use the Add Me feature.
Jermaine, picture time. Matt, come on, picture time. It's our time to shine, guys.
Okay, just scoot a little bit to the right, Jillian, so I can fit in.
How's this?
Perfect. All right, now let me hop in.
Okay. I'll take that. Ready? Say cheese. Stop. This is so cute. It's giving yearbook photo.
Yeah.
True. Okay. Complex University.
I look to Armani and I want to be the next Armani.
Yeah.
I don't want a job at Armani. I look to Ralph Lauren. I want to be the next Ralph Lauren.
Yes.
I don't want to work for Ralph Lauren,
Is Jerry Lorenzo the next Ralph Lauren? Almost 5 years ago, I wrote a story for Complex about the lack of Black ownership in fashion and streetwear. In the lead, I mentioned American heritage brands like Ralph Lauren, Calvin Klein, and Tommy Hilfiger that are now publicly traded companies. They've been able to scale and become multi-billion-dollar businesses and household names in a way that Black designers have never been able to. But Jerry Lorenzo may change that. Fear of God, which was founded by Lorenzo, is only about 13 years old, but it's on track to be an American heritage luxury brand that's able to compete with the likes of Ralph Lauren. Lorenzo is a 48-year-old designer who never received formal training in fashion design. In fact, he thought he would follow in his father, Jerry Manuel Sr.'s footsteps. He was a former professional baseball player, coach, and manager. After Lorenzo received his MBA, he did work in sports management, but it was a party he created in Los Angeles called JL Nights that exposed him to how well some streetwear designers were living around the early 2000s. At the same time, he was managing and styling professional baseball player Matt Kemp and having trouble finding the right pieces for him. So, Lorenzo started making clothes himself, which eventually led to him launching Fear of God, a name that was inspired by a Pusha T album, his upbringing, and Oswald Chambers' devotional book, My Utmost for His Highest. His first collection got into Virgil Abloh's hands, who showed it to Ye, formerly known as Kanye West, who was impressed with the designs and asked Lorenzo to work with him on his collaboration with APC. Lorenzo would go on to help him on Yeezus tour merch and Yeezy Season 1, but he parted ways with Ye in 2016 and continued to grow his own brand, which is represented by 3 pillars: Fear of God Essentials, a line of affordably priced leisure pieces; Fear of God Athletics, his sportswear division he introduced with Adidas; and Fear of God Mainline, his luxury arm that recently moved into women's. Lorenzo is truly redefining what luxury looks like, and he's doing it independently. Today, we are going to discuss if Lorenzo still feels like an outsider in the luxury fashion space, why he's avoided taking on the creative director position at another brand, how Virgil Abloh's death changed him, how his storytelling reflects a different American dream, the status of his Adidas deal, and how he actually feels about his designs for Adidas. My name is Aria Hughes, I am the editor-in-chief of Complex, and I am asking Jerry Lorenzo to please explain. Welcome, Jerry.
Thank you, Aria.
Thanks for being here. Congrats on your CFDA Icon Innovator Award.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, how does it feel to be recognized in that way?
We never have intentions to do what we do with the hope of being recognized in that way. Mm-hmm. When you are recognized in that way, you're grateful, you're humbled. You could also be confused because you're recognized and then you're not nominated for Designer of the Year at the same time. And so you don't know kind of like how this world works. Mm-hmm. And I say that to say just because of my ignorance to the establishment, right? If I take that out and I'm honest and how active is Fear of God with the CFDA and how much are we doing our part to help them with their mission, and I can honestly say little to nothing, right? So for them to see us and I look at it that way is humbling. And I think for me, like, I went into it with again, very little expectation, but being able to take that moment to just pause in this super long marathon. Mm-hmm. And they put, a little montage up before they brought me up. And of course they had all these old collections. I'm like, oh, stop. Telling like, the story of, from the beginning to where we are now. But yeah, so it was nice to kind of like, because you never really look at your work and see like how much you've done and kind of how far you've come. You're just in it, day to day. And so it was nice to be able to just pause last night with my wife and a few people from the brand and some peers from the industry. So it was nice.
Yeah. Through listening to a lot of your interviews and reading and just through, observing you over the past few years, it does feel like you feel like an outsider. Does that award make you feel less of an outsider?
No, not at all. I mean, I'm not necessarily, I don't say that I'm an outsider as if I just never felt not welcomed, but I never felt kind of like the circles that you're kind of desired to be in. We all have our friends, and you have certain friends that want you to be a part of their crew or whatever it may be. And for fashion, I'm an outsider just in the way that I approach what I do.
Right.
And I've never considered the fashion system as something that I really truly needed to understand in order to do what I've been called to do.
Yeah.
And so I, from that stance, I'm somewhat of an outsider, but those relationships within that world, I mean, they come and go. There's nothing that I'm looking for within that space that I feel like is going to validate or submit or say that fear of God is what it is.
Yeah.
That comes from somewhere else.
Yeah. But do you feel like you have to play the game a little bit?
When you say play the game, what do you mean?
I mean, just consider those institutions in certain ways. Like, I was reading about you and your decision to go to the Met Gala, Black Dandy themed Met Gala. And I think it was incredibly important for you to be there. But it seemed like you were a little conflicted initially about going.
Yeah, 100%.
Why?
Just because, it was about us, right? And it's never been about us. And so, above all, you want your work to open doors for you, right? And so when the doors open for other reasons, you question, do they really see the work, or do they see what may feel like a right fit for the theme of today? And for me, I was a little concerned with other creative directors having an opinion on what blackness is, and how do they design a look or create a look and say, oh, that's speaking to blackness. Oh, that looks black. Yes, that's good. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like the reality is that there's a multitude of ways that we present ourselves.
Right.
And what the dandy represented was not necessarily a top hat and a cane and a pocket and a square in his pocket, but a dandy is how am I presenting myself in the most elegant way possible to speak to self-dignity.
Yeah.
And that can, through aesthetics and the way that can, come to life and come to fruition in any type of look. And so the call to be a part of it was easy for me because I said, oh, we just got to come in here and be ourselves.
Yeah.
But it was important for me to show a perspective of us that was probably inconsistent with how they see us.
What do you mean by that? Because I was so impressed by the people at your table who were wearing Fear of God. It was like such a great assortment of folks, like Yara, Spike Lee, who else? Arthur Jaffa, like so many. It was just like Andre Walker, like a really wide spectrum of Black people. Amy Sherald, like, can you talk about how you thought about that assortment and what you were trying to convey?
Yeah, to answer your first question, like I think that a lot of from looking at the outside, you see Black fashion as maximalist. And we're dressing, and we've got feathers and all of these kind of loud components in an elegant way for attention.
Yeah.
But the other part of that is we also actually just want to be seen as human.
Yes.
And sometimes that's not loud. Sometimes that's a quiet elegance. Sometimes that's an immovable humility. And so it was important that our guests, first and foremost, that's who they were as people, in order to bring, the truth to the intention of the design. And so definitely I thought it was important to recognize the people that we did. And I did selfishly because some of them are friends, and intentionally because I look up to them and love what they stand for.
Yeah. I thought it was powerful. I feel like, from previous conversations that we've had, and we'll talk about this more, but I do see power in like optics and symbolism, and also just power in a Black-owned brand being able to afford a table at the Met Gala.
Yeah, and I looked at that, man, and I was just almost kind of saddened. Like, how am I the only one that can afford to have a table here in this construct of fashion that's been around for so long?
So how do they raise this money? Expensive ass tickets. So the tickets to the gala cost around $75,000 per person, but not every person you see at the gala has paid for their own ticket. What usually happens is fashion brands will purchase 10-person tables, which start at around $350,000, and invite or host celebrity guests to sit at their table.
And I just started this, just under 15 years ago, and it's, you feel, man, how is it me? You're humbled by that, but then you're just like, wow, just like another like Jackie Robinson moment is still needed in all of these different spaces, and the responsibility of that to be in there, and to show up in the way that, we show up when there's not anyone else a part of the mix.
Yeah. Does that responsibility sometimes feel like a burden?
I would never call it a burden. I think without that responsibility, I would never be as far as I am. I'm driven by that. It's in my blood. Like I've always known I've had to be twice as good at everything that I do. I've always known what I could potentially represent to somebody else, how important an example is, a tangible example is. Again, I've said this so many times. It's like, your parents tell you could be anything in life, and you believe them, but it wasn't until Barack became president where I was like, oh, I can do that. You know what I mean? It's like we believe we can be anything, but we also have these caps, right? And we're human, and I'm just doing all I can to, again, be a tangible example to those that feel as if, they're not qualified to have, dreams outside the box.
Speaking of dreams outside of the box, I mean, you moving your design studio to Paris, and just having a presence in Europe in general is huge. And also having that presence without having the backing of an LVMH or a Kering, like, it's a very big deal. And but I really do want people to understand like how hard it is to compete against those structures and like operate in Europe in the way in which you are and kind of run this luxury line. And you said that you were like, one of my hardest challenges was being considered luxury.
Yeah. That
was one of the biggest fights. Can you just break that down a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think, when Shane and Virgil and myself, and we started to see this space just outside of streetwear that didn't exist. Luxury was stale. Streetwear was, there was no emotion in it. It was blanks and prints, and there was something in between that needed to be said, and the reason it was called luxury street was simply because it landed within that gap, but it could have just been luxury out of the gate, right? Proposing something that didn't exist was what all drove us.
Yeah.
But then what was proposed was still given a construct or given a prison of luxury street that, oh, you're this, but you're not that. And it was so important for me to say, no, we are that, and we are this, and we are this. And we can authentically be luxury, we can authentically be leisure, we can authentically be performance, sport, and there is no cap, and I think that, again, it's breaking the barriers of how we're seen, and it's so important that Virgil went and carried the cross that he carried, so that my calling is carrying a cross of independence, and I can't do this if he doesn't do that. There's not one right way, but there's multiple dreams that kids have. And to have an example, all these different examples, to me has always been important. So fighting for luxury, having a conviction that my perspective and with the growth of my resources, as my 10,000 hours become hundreds of thousands of hours and my craft gets better, I always felt I had a luxury perspective just as much as I have a perspective on sneakers or sweatpants.
Yeah. You talk about independence, and that is kind of what makes you so singular, as I stated before, is that you don't have the backing of a huge luxury house. And it also seems like you've never looked for the validation of a luxury house hiring you to creative direct one of their brands. But I know that you're close with Grace Wales Bonner. What do you think about her in her new position as creative director of men's at Hermes?
I'm so happy for her. It's clearly something that she's wanted to do. And as a Black woman, Black designer, take your gifts and talents to wherever you feel God has called you or what's in your heart, and I feel like that's in her heart.
Yeah.
And I know how hard it is to do what we do as independent designers and to create elegance with limited resources. It's different when your sandbox is like this to create, to create luxury. And for her to say, no, I want to play in a bigger sandbox. I'm excited to see what she has to say. And very proud and happy for her.
Yeah. I was just listening to your podcast with Nicole Phelps.
Oh, I didn't get to hear that yet.
Oh, okay. Well, she mentioned it was fine.
I'd be blacking out.
No. She just mentioned that, which she had said she had heard rumors of your name being a potential for like an Armani position, since sadly Giorgio Armani has passed this year. Do you get these offers?
Do I get these offers? I mean, no. I mean, I get, the emails of, from different places, would you be interested in? But I look to Armani and I want to be the next Armani.
Yeah.
I don't want a job at Armani.
Yeah.
I want to, I look to Ralph Lauren. I want to be the next Ralph Lauren.
Yes.
I don't want to work for Ralph Lauren, If there's a way where, you look at Margiela, the Hermes years, right? If there's a way where we come together and we push both of our houses forward in a way that is only, in line with the intention of where we want to go, then, I'll entertain it. But I would not take on another job at the expense of what I know God has called me to do.
Yeah. So you do entertain the conversation.
Yeah, I think as you grow in anything in life, you have to continue to be open with what is the new way to get to the vision that God gave you.
Yes.
And that can change.
Yeah.
The vision and where you're going doesn't change, but how that comes to life, it could be something different than what you maybe had in mind.
Yeah, that makes me think of Pharrell, who I'm sure, I don't know if he ever thought that he would be the creative director or men's artistic director or whatever they call it of Louis Vuitton Men's. I'm curious from your perspective, how do you think Pharrell, a celebrity producer, Renaissance man, how do you think him being in the Louis Vuitton position impacts other Black designers in the space? Or in general, even if they're coming up? I mean, it could be the Obama thing where you see Pharrell as like, oh, he did it, I can do it too. But how else do you think it helps? Do you think it helps?
Yeah, I think it helps because it continues to put our culture at the forefront. And our culture is unquestionably what moves industries.
Yes.
I'm in no position to say who's qualified for what. I know that Louis Vuitton operates and LVMH operates in a much different way than a Kering does.
Yes.
And they can take a vision from someone that maybe is coming from outside of design, and they have the power to put that through product, right? And what they want is the vision to be able to put it through product. And so if that works for Pharrell and Louis Vuitton, then I think it does something for our culture that is important. And I do think it's important for something with that type of a reach and magnitude for us to still be at the forefront of that. Young Black designers need to look internally, and that's one of a million jobs. You know what I mean? It's like, that's not the only way or the only place, and all that is doing is shedding more light on everyone. So, I like what Pharrell is doing with, who can take anything away from Pharrell? Like from movies to music to like, he is a creative. Tiana Taylor, like anything she touches, and I think it's just kind of like, what are these qualifications that we're trying to assign everyone, and why?
Yeah.
I'm just always going to find the positive in someone of color being in any position.
Yes.
That's just who I am.
Yeah. That feels hard for certain people to do, or the internet to do, but that's okay. But I'm also curious, you talked about, I feel like at this stage you are, because at the beginning, and I was working at Women's Wear Daily a few years ago, and at the beginning it was kind of like, to me there was this mood across the industry that they are not designers, so they aren't qualified. And I heard you mention, with Pharrell, which is I think some of the criticism that he received when he first got the position, like, you're not a designer, you're not qualified. Do you still get that?
If I do, I don't care.
Okay.
The reality is I put the work in.
Yes.
It's like I watched,
Yes.
Ryan Coogler. He said, man, I was a football player in college. He's like, I could care less. I'm gonna outwork everybody. And for me, it's like, I put the hours in. I've been through the process. You can grab the aesthetic of an essentials, the color palette, the emotion of Fear of God, the elegance, the ease, the effortless, the shoulder. You can grab all that, but you can't grab the process that I've been through to communicate that. And my process is my process, and I put in the work. And so I think we all struggle with, are we valid enough to have this opinion? Am I qualified to, what am I doing, in Paris on top of this tennis court with the showroom? Like nigga, who are you? Like,
that was gorgeous,
Like, it's
by the
kind of
way.
like,
Yeah.
we all go through these things, but it's just kind of like, then you take a step back and be like, yo, I did the work.
Yeah.
I did the work in an honest way with what I have. And the difference in being an independent designer is what I put into every single design has a direct effect on my business. What I put into everything is not something that I can afford to just hope works. Because I'm depending on that to do what it's intended to do, so that I can invest back into this.
Yes.
It's a different level of of consideration
Yes.
when it's yours. If it doesn't work, I just can't like call in a creative director and find resources to, you know what I mean? Like if it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
You know? And so, yeah, the internet can be a tough place. I think, yeah, for me, it's been about growth and maturity. And I think I'm finally recently at a place where, you know, I'm okay with where I am within this space. You know, you do go through those moments of not feeling worthy and not feeling valid and not feeling like, you know, you should be here. And then you finally are on the other side of that, and you're okay with the sacrifices and the work that you put in. And so, you know, I'm cool with where I am.
I love that you're at that place and like that you are like, I've done the work, because I don't think people understand how much it takes. So I'm happy that you're at that place.
And I think not understanding what it takes is why I'm here. I think if I would have known what I know now, I don't know that I would be here.
Yeah.
It is too much. It is too heavy. You know, there's too many reasons that tell you to stop.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's why God gives you, you know, the end vision. You know, it doesn't tell you every little thing you're going to have to do, because it could be overwhelming.
So this is how Jerry Lorenzo outlasted the streetwear luxury hype. Jerry Lorenzo was in a class of designers including the late Virgil Abloh, Shane Oliver, Matthew Williams, and Heron Preston, who all believed there was a gap between streetwear and luxury that needed to be filled. I must add, they all had some sort of affiliation with Ye. But they were all fighting to be seen as luxury, and when Virgil Abloh was named the artistic director of menswear at Louis Vuitton in 2018, it symbolized that they won that fight. While Lorenzo had a similar mission, he maneuvered the industry differently from his peers. For one, he maintained independence, which is very difficult to do in fashion. Off-White, Heron Preston, and for a short time Hood by Air had partnerships with the New Guards Group, an Italian fashion conglomerate that capitalized off the streetwear to luxury movement and provided the resources to manufacture, distribute, and sell those brands' pieces. Eventually, LVMH would acquire a majority stake in Virgil Abloh's Off-White, but they would sell it to Boussard Alliance Group after his death. Heron Preston, thankfully, was able to buy back his brand from the New Guards Group, which recently filed for bankruptcy protection. Lorenzo also never aspired to land a creative director position at a larger luxury house. He did work with Zegna, an Italian men's brand, on a capsule collection in 2020, but he always wanted to invest more energy into fear of God. And like his peers, Lorenzo was running away from the streetwear categorization, but he was also not afraid to provide something accessible and affordable with Fear of God Essentials, which was initially produced and sold exclusively at PacSun, and now has licensing partnerships with the NBA, WNBA, and MLB. He's setting himself up to get a slice of the sports merchandise market, which, in 2024, was estimated to be at $36 billion globally. Fear God Essentials is the brand's biggest revenue driver. In 2023, Vogue said that Fear God Essentials' annual revenue was between $200 million and $300 million. It's the reason Lorenzo was able to maintain independence and grow his main luxury line, Fear of God, which recently introduced women's, opened an office in Paris, and seemingly wants to compete with the likes of The Row, which has investment from the Chanel owners, Bottega Veneta, which is owned by Kering, and Phoebe Philo's line, which has investment from LVMH. These are big players. But now that Essentials is firmly established, he's brought on a new CEO, Bastien Daguzan, formerly of Jacquemus, and is clearly interested in creating a real and firm footing in the luxury space. This is unprecedented territory for most designers, let alone Black American designers. And in my opinion, Lorenzo has been able to scale tastefully in a way that many of his peers have not. You are now bringing people onto your team who have worked at, like you just hired, or not just, but your new CEO, or your CEO was at Jacquemus. Mm-hmm. What's his name?
Bastien.
Yes, thank you. And I know you also recently hired Mimi, who was at Tom Ford.
Yeah.
Noah knows Mimi, so he was telling me about that yesterday. How has that been, bringing new people onto the team who might be used to things working a certain way? I know you were telling...
You've been in the office?
I haven't, but I'm just presuming. Laurent hasn't told me a thing. I don't know nothing. I'm just presuming that it's probably much different working for a Tom Ford that who just bought them. Xenia? Or no, that was Tom Brown. Whatever. Working for a Tom Ford, a very long established brand, versus coming to a new independent brand. And also I'm sure they have ideas, and you've had your ideas, and you've been running this on your own for a while. So how has that transition been, and listening to them and understanding them? And
Man, it's been a transition, and I think what attracted me to someone like Bastion was him being close with Simone at Jacques Muse, and them both having a conviction for this new luxury space that like Jacques Muse sits in his own way.
Yeah.
It's the same space that we sit in from our side.
Well, can you define this new luxury space? What is
it? I think it's just a luxury house that's not attached to heritage.
Got it. Okay.
Right? In my opinion.
Yes.
Maybe that's what it is. It's not attached to, the decades, generations of, and also maybe not attached to a Kering or an LVMH or a large family. It's these independent brands that are putting out similar product and creating new ways and disrupting how what is luxury is even considered.
Yes. Okay.
And so it was important that I brought in a CEO that understood that new space more so than I would bring in a CEO from like an older house. To your point, I thought that he would have a little bit better of an understanding of having to get his hands dirty and the scrappiness that's required, and all these unorthodox ways of working, and having a respect and value for the work that's been done, and trying to come in and bring a best class way of working to accelerate it to the next level. You asked about, would I creative direct or would I partner? And it's just kind of like, I never thought I would have like a French CEO, but it's like you're growing, you're getting to places where you feel like, hey, I need a little bit more expertise in some areas. And that's just, again, it's like the growth of a business is like you're just constantly uncomfortable, and you have to just get comfortable being uncomfortable.
I'm curious, how do you feel watching the way in which Virgil's brand and kind of legacy have been handled in the wake of his very untimely and sad death, tragic death? What have you taken away from that?
Man, I need to spend more time with my family. For me, that's super personal. Me and Virgil we were friends who had a deep respect for one another. Didn't hang out, and we weren't collabing with each other in front of the world like that. But we were on this Business of Fashion Zoom one day, and they were talking about some social justice issues, and it just sounded so crazy. And so after the call, I just FaceTimed him like, bro, what are they talking about? And we were laughing for a little bit, and I told him about, hey, I'm doing this T-shirt with Angelo and Awake, and we want to put Off-White on the back. And he's like, yeah, they're killing me about this and that. And he just started bawling, crying. And he's like, yeah, I also have this thing that I just found out in my heart. And he was crying. And he said, no one knows, but I'm telling you because I know you're going to pray for me. And, when he hit me with that, all the other feelings that I had about, why are we not kind of holding each other up publicly when we were holding each other up in a deeper way. And when he passed, I know so intimately that weight that he had. I definitely was not at his level, but I know the weight. I know the weight of being out front of culture and missing time with your kids, and how everything that you do is like an open wound for the world, and to see that weight on him, it really, really, really hurt me. And when he passed, I was just super sad because I knew how heavy this thing was. And it's hard for me to separate that from him getting sick because it is so heavy. And so for me, when you ask me about that, I think about my kids, and I'm thinking about how much more is it worth, burning, what's it called? Burning the candle.
The midnight oil,
whatever,
or
at
the
both sides.
candlestick on both sides.
How much longer can you go, and at what cost? And then my boy Boswell. I don't know if you know about World Boswell. Out of Los Angeles too, and it could be heavy.
Yeah.
It could be heavy. And is there another way that I can answer this call and also be at my son's practice?
Yeah. Yeah. So now we're going to lighten things up and talk about storytelling. What percentage of your success do you attribute to the marketing and storytelling of your brand versus the pieces and the design?
I attribute 100% to all aspects of it. They're all one and the same. I would never put a product out and spend more time telling a story in something I don't believe in.
Got it. Okay.
I'm putting everything that I possibly can into everything that we make, and I'm doing everything I possibly can to tell the most honest and authentic story around the intention of why we made it.
Yeah. How do you think, or do you pay attention to what's going on in the market, like with your peers or other designers?
You know what? Somewhat.
Yeah.
I'm on social.
Yeah.
I see stuff, here and there, and some things get brought to me, but I'm in the lab. My team will tell you I get to the office, I'm head down, and then I got family time after. So I spend so much time focusing on what we're called to do, and there are things that do happen within the industry. Obviously, you're in it. I strive to be in it and not of it.
Yeah.
I got an idea of what's happening.
Okay. Because I'm curious how you think the way you tell stories about Blackness differs from others. Or do you even think about that?
No.
Okay.
What do you mean by that?
I mean,
like, give me an example of
well,
that.
let's talk about the Civil collection.
Yeah.
So, what was your thinking with that collection in particular, and specifically like the prop with the arrest number on it? Like, what were you thinking? Yeah, like when you were designing this collection and wanting to tell that story.
Man, we're positioning and we're fighting to be considered American luxury. And I think I feel convicted that I'm defining what that is. And that's not just a perspective on one culture within America. This is all cultures. To me, the civil rights movement, what people of color, black specifically during that time, what they had to consider when getting dressed in the morning, when they had to go to work, didn't have a lot of money, didn't have a lot of resources, to say, hey, I need to go, I'm going to put my overalls on, I got to go work a 9 to 5, put a blazer on and a tie after because I'm going to go for a march. I might do a sit-in, I might have to spend a night in jail, and I'm fighting to be seen as a man. The functionality and the elegance of how that person is presenting themselves, the weight of that is the story that I'm telling to the Civil collection. The elegance comes through this person's fight for dignity.
Got it. Okay.
And we used the Martin Luther King and the Freedom Riders, and when they all got arrested.
Yep.
and the sit-ins and all of that. You know, we use those kind of gel placards as a nod to the sit-ins, the freedom riders of that time. And I thought it was important that you could see somebody look so beautiful and elegant, and they're a criminal. And so just that visual to me, in my mind, I thought was powerful. Maybe it wasn't, but that was the intention of having that there.
That explanation definitely makes it powerful, I will say, because I didn't initially think of it in that way, but I should have. I also love, I think one of my most recent favorite stories from you is the MLB video you did with Calmatic. Oh my gosh. We don't need to play it because we don't have that much time, and you know what the video looks like. But I love that video because it just really positioned like the American dream includes us, you
Exactly.
know, and all of our glory. And I love the casting, etc. So tell me about that and what was your intention with that and working with Calmatic on that, who clearly also has a connection to baseball.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably one of my favorite pieces to date.
Yeah.
The funny thing about Chuck is when Jerry was born, my son, he's 15 now, I was like, hey, man, this before he was directing, I need a videographer to like come shoot my wedding, to shoot my baby shower. And Chuck shot and like directed my baby shower.
Okay, that's so cute.
And so I've known him for 15, 20 plus years. The black baseball community is super small. I grew up in baseball. When you get to the professional ranks, it's even smaller, but even, you know, black kids playing baseball, like it's kind of like a fraternity. We find that there's so many more blacks that are playing football and basketball,
Yes.
right? But that baseball community is small, right? And so we released some Franklin gloves like years ago, and he hit me. He's like, bro, like if you're gonna tell a story, don't forget about me. And I was like, yo, I have a bigger story. We're about to do this, collab partnership with MLB, and we just started vibing back and forth, and we landed on picture day, and there's so many nuances that most people probably don't catch, but we were just kind of geeking out on like, the hood coach that doesn't know anything about baseball, that's just out there yelling, gambling, you know what I mean, to the parents that are just getting, more swagged out, and their kids are out there in these bummy T-shirts, but they got all the, all the White Sox swag on or whatever.
The lotion on the face or the Vaseline on the face.
Like we've all had that moment, right? Like, and that's just something we can all like, and to see ourselves in that way, in a beautiful way. And then, and shout to Calmatic, he found this Nat King Cole song about baseball.
That song was perfect.
And it was just like baseball in the Bible. And he talks about how, the first game baseball was played in the Bible, and he uses the Bible. So, I mean, it couldn't have been a more Fear of God song. And we just had so much fun with that.
Yeah.
With that shoot.
I love that shoot. Yeah, the song choice, everything was like perfect. What do you think of Ralph Lauren doing the HBCU stuff?
I mean, there's a black creative director there, right? So I'm sure it's coming from his heart, and I think, this is like Willie doing this shoe with Adidas that is coming from his heart. However, who he's partnering with, maybe that partner isn't fully aligned with the intention of that shoe.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so fully aligned with, like, not fully understanding the nuances and the depths of why he's honoring them through this shoe.
Yeah.
Right? And so you have authenticity against something that historically is not. And so then you try to put a product against it, and you're going to come against something that just doesn't feel right.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's what you're feeling, where if Ralph historically has not to say that they're not doing the work to try to see, and I'm not there, I don't know.
Yeah.
But if they historically have not, and then you see this beautiful collection from a new creative director, it's just natural that you're gonna, it's like Luther's curl didn't quite, it doesn't, you know what I mean? There's like some activator in there. It's like something something is like not right. And I think that's what you're feeling. But it's not to say it's wrong or it's incorrect or the intentions are wrong. It's just that historically the support of us has not been there. And so when we do get that support, we're no longer just happy to be seen. We're questioning why.
Yeah.
And we're questioning the intention of why. You know? And so that's the way I see it.
Got it. That was a great answer. You also had a beautiful show at the Rose Bowl that I did not attend. The
Hollywood Bowl.
Oh, the Hollywood Bowl. Thank you. Thank you. I didn't attend, but I was watching the basically like your recap video of it, and it was gorgeous. And I know that you've kind of been anti-fashion show, or at least anti being on like the Paris fashion show schedule or whatever. What did that show teach you? How are you feeling about showing? I know now you are presenting your collection at least for buyers and press during the sale season, but where are you at now with wanting to present Fear of God in that type of way?
You know, for me, I just felt as if I finally was at a place where, you know, the collection and my resources were at a place where I could, you know, put on a show. I felt the collection was worthy of a show, and I had a specific story to tell with the soundtrack of that show. It starts off with this bitter earth, and it goes into this bitter earth going into strange fruit, and the fruit that grows from the tree that grows from the bitter earth that we hung from. And then it gets into you know, the pain from that up into the beauty in America the Beautiful with like Ray Charles. And so the soundtrack was like the story to that. And the backdrop and it being in Los Angeles was important because, you know, I always have felt as if we've had to put our perspective against a European backdrop for it to be considered luxury. And so I wanted to do it home in LA, my favorite venue, the Hollywood Bowl, probably one of the last and most kind of like iconic venues there, to say that, hey, our perspective is beautiful here.
Yeah.
And so for that show specifically, I had something to say.
Yeah.
You know, I would like when we do have shows that we have something to say. And beyond the stories that we do tell with each collection, but I think there's something about a show where you have the ability to bring people together and give them something and put them in a contemplative state, with, you know, have them to leave thinking about it. And I think that's really hard to do during Fashion Week when you have to run to another show. And so it's like you put all of this love and sweat and, you know, equity into this show, and then, oh, that's nice, I'm going to go see Tom Brown.
Right,
you know?
right, yeah.
So I don't know. And maybe that changes, but for me, it's like if I'm going to bring people together, I want to be a little bit more intentional about it.
Yeah. You know, one of your signatures is shape and silhouette. And I am curious, it's like, how do you know when it's time to shift it or tweak it a little bit? Because obviously your line does not look how it looked when it first started. And even I was looking at your outfit last night, which was beautiful, like the brown, chocolate brown leather pants with, was that a t-shirt? Like,
it's a wool cashmere sweater.
Cashmere sweater that looks like a t-shirt. You know, it has like the comfort and ease of a t-shirt.
Like a AAA or whatever, something real hood.
Right. And I've read also that you go through maybe like 12 or 13 samples to get these things exactly where you like them to be. So can you talk a little bit about how you know when it's time to tweak a shape, move on from a silhouette? Like, what's your thinking with that?
Again, it's like this Dieter Rams approach. I don't know how much the shapes will continue to evolve, but the essence of that piece being like comfortable, and the essence of that piece being functional, and again like sophisticated and elegant. Those pieces have to be there. You know, a lot of times those pieces, you know, land in a place where, you know, you could be tailored here, but your shoulder may be generous, and you know, and you know, the garment hits you in certain places to speak to precision, but it's also generous in others to speak to something being comfortable and allows it to feel comfortable. But you know, I'm a kid of the late '80s, early '90s, and when suits were just slightly, you know, a little off, you know what I mean? We had a little bit more room to move in them.
Yeah.
They just look easier.
Yeah.
They look cooler to me.
Yeah.
You know, it was never cool when something just fit too perfect. You know, it looked like you just put a little bit too much effort in that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so those are kind of the ingredients, how those ingredients kind of sometimes mix, and the gumbo has a little bit of different taste every Thanksgiving. You know, it's just kind of like, you know, it might taste a little bit different, but it's still the same like spirit in there.
And then I want to talk about, obviously, you deciding to work with Justin Bieber was, maybe you felt like it was a big risk at the time.
Yeah.
And now we see, I mean, it really did help change his image. I know that Carla Welch also helped with that too. I don't want to take anything away from her. But what do you think of him and his new brand Skylark, and how he's kind of become this creator unto himself? And he's also kind of focusing on like leisure, comfortable, bright colors. Like, what do you think of what he's doing with Skylark?
I think it's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, the reason I worked with Justin, because I thought he was cool. He has some swag. He is an athlete. His music is good, and you know, me and Carla worked on that together. And I was at a place where I was no longer working with some other people, and I just felt as if, I'm attached to this message of purpose. I actually really like Justin. I think he's cool. I think I have some gifts and talents that could help him. However, at the time, it was very different from what people knew Fear of God to be.
Yes.
But it was consistent with my spirit.
Yes.
And so I had to go with my spirit, and I think it ended up extending us.
Yeah.
You know.
JID keeps saying that you're going to be working with him on a stage.
We are.
Jerry Lorenzo is finna do a Fear of God does like ugly stage.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Okay.
We are. I'm just slammed.
Okay.
I'm slammed.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are y'all working on? Like merch and stage design?
Yeah, I mean, we're just kind of like creatively vibing together.
Okay.
I just have a love for him. Randomly, like I had been a fan of his, and he met me in Paris, and he just was like just a cool, humble cat. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, I love what you do, and you know, to me, he's like the next 3 stacks. And I'm like, bro, like I love what you do too. You know, he went to HBCU. We're both former athletes. His manager's a Kappa. He's a Noop. Shout out to the Noops. So we just, we just vibe, man. I like him. I like what he stands for. I like what he raps about. He's a family man. So yeah, we're trying to find a way to work together.
Okay. So let's talk about partnerships. So what is the state of your relationship with Adidas?
As of today, I am still under contract with Adidas. We have about 2 months left. Our partnership ends at the end of December. And we've agreed not to renew it, both sides. And so, I feel as if we've done what we were called to do for Adidas and have given them a perspective and a vision to run with. And I feel like we answered what we were called to do. And I feel like for myself and my team that we learned a lot. I'm grateful for those lessons.
Do you have any regrets on your side and their side of how... Because when this deal was first announced, it was a huge deal. And I think, I was reading a WWD story and they were like, you liken this to the Jordan brand at Nike or whatever. And you feel like what you were doing at Adidas had the potential to be that. Did you?
Yeah, 1,000%. I mean, I would hope that anyone that steps on the court has a desire to win a championship. If you got to go through Mike, then that's who's on the court. You know what I mean? That's who's on the court at the time. But the reality was I strongly and still believe that there was a perspective on performance sport. And this is the same thing that, you know, when I went to Nike back in 17, 18, where I just wasn't going to do a retro. I just didn't believe in it anymore. And I said, people want honesty. They want authenticity. They want a shoe that is, you know, designed to do what it's supposed to do, you know, which is perform.
Yeah.
You know, this is why, you know, we wore Jordans growing up. And so what I understood Adidas to want from me and that we were going to build together was a performance, basketball, other sports, through Fear of God Athletics, built by Adidas, that would speak to the authenticity of sport. And that was the intention from, you know, going in. I think it got tough throughout the relationship as I probably went through 6 or 7 different leads on the project on their side, and my side never changed. Different footwear designer leads, and, you know, with different leads comes different information. And, oh, this shoe is testing great, and, you know, then we get ready to go to market, and, oh, it's too heavy, and, you know, it's like, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I'm taking, and at the same time, I'm like over compensating to make this pillar feel as honest and authentic as possible to go with everything else that I've built. And so that took way more out of me, what we did there, than I even was able to put into like Fear of God and Essentials. And when the first collection started to just feel like Essentials, and our shoes never really got quite where I kind of wanted them to go. And I'm not saying it's Adidas's fault. I think they had the best intentions in trying to get this product to where it needed to get to, but I think there was just a lot of personnel changes where investments were made and things needed to come out, whether they were ready or not. And the reality is, you know, Adidas is set to a different standards and measures of performance and what they're trying to do than what Fear of God is. Fear of God will wait 10 years to make sure that this is what it needs to be. You know, they don't have the luxury to do that.
Right.
And so there's a fundamental difference in how we go about what we're doing.
Yeah.
And to their defense, there's things that they have to get out when they need to get out, even if it's not where it needs to be.
Right.
I don't have that luxury.
Yeah.
And so then that is this fundamental difference between we couldn't really find, you know, the same footing, the same ground. And would I do it again? Yeah, I mean, it's like a multi-million-dollar class in footwear, sneakers, and performance wear. Maybe the fruit of that is coming through with Skims and Nike. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
You know what I mean? And my vision for that is something that I don't get to see, which is cool, but it's, you know, it'll come in due time. But I'm grateful we were able to, you know, deliver on the promise of landing a sneaker and getting it in the NBA. We had we've got an OTE this team this year and last year. We've got youth baseball teams and youth basketball programs. And so, like, I'm able to feed this thing that I also love, which is youth sports that I believe in deeply. And so how we continue to pour into youth sports and to have a perspective in performance sports is to be determined. We'll see.
Do you like what you made for Adidas, the sneakers?
In all honesty, like the first sneaker, you want how much you need time though. I'll give it to you real. The first sneaker, I loved. I loved the first basketball sneaker. I thought, from what they told me, that it was light and playable. And if I look at it from a silhouette perspective, I think it smashes other shoes. The second sneaker was actually the Fear of God 2. Was actually designed for Prada. And so that's why it kind of has that like World Cup feel.
Hold on, what you mean it was designed for Prada?
Long story. We were in this role of kind of leading basketball. You know, I was like, hey, why don't we move into partnering with like a Prada and some of these other fashion partners and begin to create franchises for basketball based on like fashion houses. In the same way, there's like a Fear of God shoe that should be a Prada basketball shoe, and Prada was into the idea, and so we brought a finished sneaker to Prada, and their entire team wasn't into it. Let's just say Raf hadn't seen the shoe and was like, "What the hell is happening?" So that shoe was canceled. At the same time, Adidas was frustrated with the performance of the first shoe. And so all of the 15, 20 things that we were working on, they're scrambling and saying, no, let's just focus on this shoe that you have done. So then we have to take that shoe, remix it, and make it a Fear of God 2. Part of that was, hey, if we've put this 2 out that wasn't even made with the intention to be purely like the DNA of Fear of God, we take in our DNA and put it against Prada, then let us make this Fear of God 3. So long story short, we have a 3 coming out, but that comes out after our contract.
Oh, Lord.
So
Okay.
we will see how that is received in the world. But we do have a final proposition that comes out after the Derrick Rose shoe in the world. And so to answer your question, I loved that shoe for Prada, the second basketball shoe. I thought it was like, and to me, the reason it was a Prada basketball shoe, the depths of that story is that was the very first sneaker in the late 90s in Chicago that like dope boys would go get, was like, you know, the America's Cup, the patent leather. And it was like, oh, y'all rocking Jordans, now I got the Prada.
Right.
So it was like to be able to do that sneaker and bring it back into culture through like authentic basketball was like the story. I was like, that's going to be it.
Yeah.
But anyhow, it still gets to live with Derrick. I like it best with Derrick because with Derrick, it speaks back to like Prada on Rush and Oak Street in Chicago, and it feels most like that emotion. But as a Fear of God shoe and Adidas, it just wasn't exactly. So I know that was a lot, but you asked, and so.
That was very insightful. Thank you.
Respectfully, like that's kind of how that happened. But other than that, like I like a lot. I mean, the runner, like the LA runner, I think is super cold. The 86 low, I thought was like a Air Force One killer, but you know, that's just my opinion.
Well, are you interested in working with any other larger athletic brands?
To the Armani question, you know, if we see things the same way and we go about this in a way that's both pushing both houses to where they're called to be, then yes, I'm interested.
Fear of God Essentials, I mean, it's incredibly successful and really smart, by the way. And also all the partnerships that you're having with the MLB, the NBA, the WNBA, like, I love to see it because I don't think also people understand how hard it is to get those licenses and to be able to produce with those marks, et cetera, et cetera. Do you think that without Fear of God Essentials, would we be able to have Fear of God Mainline? Like, does the success of Fear of God Essentials feed into your luxury line?
I think, again, you know, why we changed, you know, CEOs is because the reality is the fight to become luxury and the perspective at such a high level is what gives permission to something like Essentials to exist.
Yeah.
It's what gives us the permission to have a partnership with Nike or Adidas. It's what allows us, because Fear of God is what Fear of God is.
Yeah.
On a business standpoint, it is Essentials responsible also for bringing in revenue that Fear of God is not, so that Fear of God can continue to be what it is. Like, there is a different calling on what that is.
Yeah.
But it's not there for the sake of driving revenue.
Yes.
It's, you know, again, when we started Essentials, it wasn't Essentials, it was FOG.
Yep.
And number one, I hate the word fog. I hate the way it sounds. And then number two, it just felt fake. It felt like a watered down diffusion of a real thing. And I felt like what was missing in the market was something aspirational that was accessible. And I felt like that was the hole in the market that we hit, is like, what am I buying that I can wear with my Balenciaga hoodie? Right? Like, what is that thing that you could just put on and feel as if you're buying and you're buying into something you believe in without buying a watered down version of that. And to me, that's why it was so important to change it to essentials and for it to just be, the best essentials.
So let's talk about the future before you head out of here. We've brought up Ralph Lauren, and then I also think about like a Rick Owens, and I'm just curious, and obviously you probably don't even know like how your brand will continue to grow and what the structure will be, but I'm sure you have desires. So when I think of Ralph Lauren, it's like publicly traded, lots of licensing partnerships, many, many, many stores globally. And I think of Rick Owens, it's obviously privately owned. I think he still owns a majority stake. Like, which path are you interested in taking as of today?
I think the most important path is that I have a vision for Fear of God.
Yeah.
Finally opening retail the end of next year in Los Angeles and here in New York. And first and foremost, like providing an atmosphere and an environment for someone to walk in and understand clearly how Fear of God, eternal, essentials, what we're doing with sports, where athletics becomes and how all of these pillars live together in one house. And I'm looking forward to defining that. I believe that environment and I believe that perspective is one that doesn't exist in the market.
Yeah.
I believe that we're uniquely positioned to say luxury authentically, again, say essentials and call it athleisure, sports and performance in an authentic way that we can say something that's never been said honestly head to toe across all these different platforms. And so I think the potential for that is maybe larger than what Rick Owens is. This could be larger than maybe some other brands that you mentioned. And so I'm going about it in the way that I have a vision for it.
Clearly you are very invested in the product that you're putting out. As it grows and you scale, do you fear that you won't have the same level of control over the
I don't
design?
fear it. I don't fear it at all. I mean,
Okay.
I remember, I remember hearing about Armani like being in the windows, shortly before he passed, and it's like, I also don't want to be that guy. Nothing against that.
No, I understand.
And
I understand.
I respect and I understand the love and where that comes from, but I want to be able to be obsessed with my kids' homework, be obsessed with the things that they're into, in the same way that I'm obsessed with, be obsessed with the things my wife is interested in, and I wanna continue to find a way to grow so that I can see from above on this gift that God has given me as a business and be able to direct from above, but also begin to give more of myself to other things.
Well, I just want to say, I think that, a long time ago, I did a story for Complex about like why there's a lack of ownership in Black ownership in streetwear fashion. And I remember, calling out Ralph and how like we have never had a Black equivalent of that, even though we have obviously helped so much in making that brand what it is today. And so for there to be a brand like Fear of God and what you're making, that to me is kind of reflecting the American dream that I know well, and creating this line that everybody can have access to and that can make people feel more comfortable in their skin and also elegant, I think it's incredibly powerful. And I know that it has taken a lot to build this. And so I have like great respect for that journey and your vision and like sticking to it, even if it has meant sacrificing things that are incredibly important. And I can't wait till you get to a point where you can spend more time with your family and just watch this thing that you've built continue to flourish.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I thank you for your time and just being so open and generous with your information.
Thanks. I'm sure I'm in trouble, but it was nice.
Thank you.
Thanks.